people throw around the idea of pent-up demand for the travel and tourism. It's really true.
That's the reason why I make restaurants. That's the reason why they're all doing well.
We do a tasting menu in the Morrison as well. We have a 7-course tasting menu.
If you've ordered on Deliveroo food from like a Michelin Star restaurant, it ain't Michelin Star.
Chef Table Podcast by Hotel and Restaurant Times with Cyril Macquarie.
Hello, my name is Cyril Macquarie and I'm very excited to welcome you to the first of 6 episodes in our Chef Table podcast series. In this first episode we talk to John Fareed and James Chappell from Horwath HTL Global, the world's largest consulting organisation specialising in hospitality, with over 50 offices in 39 countries. We chat with John and James about the Great Resignation and how technology can help play its part, the upcoming challenge of hybrid working, global distressed assets and much more. Subscribe to the channel and visit our website at hotelandrestauranttimes.ie/podcasts for upcoming episodes where we chat with some of Ireland's top chefs with great topical conversations from career to personal life, the impact of COVID-19 had on the industry, as well as what the future holds for culinary arts. This podcast is sponsored by Nespresso Professional, bringing the exceptional Nespresso coffee offering to hotels and restaurants. So John Fareed.
Global Chairman, Horwath HTL.
Okay. And your colleague?
James Chappell, Global Business Director, Horwath HTL.
Okay. And your roles would be intertwined, I take it?
Correct.
And so you would look after, James, you would look after the UK, is it? UK?
No, global.
Global.
So So basically in the 50 firms in the network, I'm kind of like the corporate guy sitting in the middle. So all of those functions that you would imagine that would go towards running a sort of network of 50 offices, that's kind of what me and my team are responsible for. So bringing new firms on, getting other old firms out, doing all the centralized marketing, all of the websites, all of the business development, the business lines, all of that.
Operational tools.
All of that good stuff.
So you're like the A team. When you arrive in, it's a clean sweep and it's focusing on the business.
Without the guns. Yeah, very basically.
Yeah.
Although the A team,
Mr. T.
although the A, I don't think the A team
Mr.
ever
T.
managed to shoot anyone.
No,
Like the whole thing.
No, Mr. T just clobbered him.
Yeah.
So, and as global chair, I mean, Horwath is quite an organization. Like, it's 100 years old. It's we're 52 offices in 40 countries, 250 senior level consultants, 80 service areas. So we do all aspects of HTL, which includes hotel, tourism, and leisure.
Okay.
So across the gambit of that, but we do everything from asset management to appraisal valuation. So you can look up more if you want on horwathhtl.com.
Anything in and around the hotel assets,
We're in it.
that's what we do.
With the exception of one thing, we do not do brokerage. We have no hotel brokerage. So we are fiduciary for you.
Okay.
And that makes us truly unique.
No buying and selling a hotel assets.
And we're independent. We're not
So
part of a
you go in and
fund.
you work with the property to ensure it maximises its profitability, is that?
Yeah, correct. So if somebody's developing a hotel and they need to borrow 50 million euros from the bank is coming to us and saying, is this going to work? Should we lend the guys money? Or if somebody wants to buy or sell a hotel and they want to know how much that hotel is worth, they come to us and they'll do a valuation and they'll take that valuation to the market.
You're not stripping its assets.
Well, but the thing is, though, in the consulting game, as John said, it's incredibly important that you're independent, because you can't go to a hotel owner and you can't speak to the market about value or about what they should do with it if, on the flip side of that, you're looking to get some kind of fee from selling the asset. You can't be seen to be selling your own numbers. It's a clear conflict. But we're pretty much unique in that.
We are very unique, because a lot of the firms that we compete with, that we won't mention on the record,
yes,
are really, they have the consulting, they have the advisory, they have the valuation, and they also have the brokerage.
right, yeah.
So it gets a little fuzzy.
I was going to say they have a lot of tentacles.
Yes.
Some of them even have their own hotel funds.
Yeah.
So they're competing against their clients for
Yeah,
assets,
yeah.
which is
They're sort of, as we say at home, they're both poacher and gamekeeper.
certainly
Yeah.
and driving the Land Rover and Labradors.
Yeah.
But it's proven to be a big competitive advantage that
Yeah.
we're independent and we do treat people as a fiduciary
Right.
from a responsibility standpoint. That's the relationship.
Yeah, and you mentioned, like you were saying there earlier on about the way that real estate is changing, that hospitality now is seen as the go-to. If you have, assets in hospitality, it's a true asset. Whereas against if you have an office block, it isn't as valuable.
It's true. In days ago, the days before COVID, in this shift, the hotel industry as an asset, hospitality was considered sort of the redheaded stepchild.
Right.
And I would say in the shift, it's become more and more. How do I put it? It's become more and more valuable because people understand it's a business as opposed to just a real estate asset. It's an ongoing enterprise that holds value.
Yeah.
Whereas we've seen what's happened in the office and retail space.
Nespresso Professional brings the exceptional espresso coffee offering to hotels and restaurants that demonstrate a commitment to excellence. Nespresso coffee is made using the finest beans sourced from renowned coffee growing territories worldwide. Offering a range of coffees to satisfy discerning palates and complement dining experiences, the Nespresso Professional coffee machine delivers consistently exceptional coffee drinks, cup after cup.
Like in Ireland now, getting rid of the PCR test. I think everyone expects that when this shifts slightly, there's going to be a huge rebound in terms of that. And commercial, hospitality real estate will take fantastic advantage of that. And as John said, I think what investors are realizing that the risk-reward ratio is already better in hospitality assets, because with a commercial space, you agree a rent on a per square foot basis, and it's like, I'll see you in 5 years or 10 years. There's no upside. Whereas the hotel asset, where it's a business and the owner and the operator are both in business together, sure, that's more of a risk. But if you get it right, the potential upside for the owner and the investor is much greater. I think coming out of this, we're going to be of all the real estate assets the best position to take advantage of that.
I will say too that I think that the proof is in the pudding as it relates to distressed assets.
Okay.
There's a lot of distressed assets on the commercial front, the retail front, but if you look at the hotel industry, we get calls globally for, especially like to the U.S., to Mexico, to the Caribbean. John, we want to pick up distressed assets. We're looking for distressed assets, and I have to tell them there are none. No one is looking to sell those assets and move along. And I always tell them, good luck finding any. And the same is true here, I bet you, or in London. No one's looking to get rid of their hotels, but you want to take half my office building or shopping center, happy to have a conversation.
And I suppose in Ireland, I don't know what's like in the UK or in the US, but in Ireland, the government have been very supportive of the industry and have put in, monetary supports to the industry that has allowed them to continue to stay afloat. So that when they come back, they're going to have a deficit.
Well, that makes perfect sense, because it's still a very people intensive industry, which I think is one of my favorite things about the hospitality industry, is that it's so labor intensive. Of course, and is only going to get more so, because people are, with the advent, I think, of technology, mostly people are trying to get rid of stuff. And so, hospitality is one of the very few, well, it always used to be, didn't it? It was one of the very few industries that you go into with zero qualifications, and 10 years later you could be a general manager or an area manager or whatever.
Happens all the time.
Yeah, there are very, very few businesses that have that now. And so for the government, it's absolutely in their interest.
In the U.S. that didn't happen. The U.S. supported a lot of businesses, but hospitality wasn't one of them. So hoteliers have kind of been left on their own. There's been some support from a business loan perspective or whatnot, but nothing like true support. I will say too that we're struggling with the great resignation in terms of people power, staff, kitchens, bars, housekeeping. We're having a difficult time, and for the longest time we thought it was the gig economy. where a lot of people said, I'm going to drive an Uber, or I'm going to deliver food, or I'm going to do this or that or the other, because I can now. And I've gotten used to working from home and having my own hours and that sort of thing. But for us, for instance, in the States, and perhaps here in the UK as well, when we dig down deeper, what we found is that a lot of the boomers decided it's time, let's just pull the trigger and retire. This is a good time to do that. And there were incentives. There were a lot of buyouts. There was a lot of belief, too, that all the extra money that they thought they'd get if they worked another couple, 3 years isn't going to be there.
Right.
So why not just go ahead and get busy now? So there was a huge workforce, at least from the U.S. perspective, that decided to retire. And that's everything from your truck drivers to your medical professionals who were done.
Right.
So it's been difficult. But
We have this thing in England now. The average age of the truck drivers is 56.
Wow.
56.
Wow.
Pre-pandemic.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing now. Those guys have like gone off, and there's no one.
Yeah.
There's no one to do it.
Yeah, we're short about 60,000 truck drivers in the U.S., which is a lot of truck drivers.
How do you see? How can you make hospitality attractive? Does the model have to change in the sense of the working conditions, the hours, and things, more flexibility and more?
Absolutely. So this is happening from food service, fine dining, to food halls. Even within the community, from a housekeeping perspective, hotels have started to understand that, well, you're going to come in early from your flight, so we're going to let you check in at 10:30, and we'll have a room ready. But then you've got a whole nother group who doesn't want to check out until late afternoon. So they might get a little bit more revenue, or it might be a loyalty perk. So they have a second shift now of housekeepers that's become important. So we can even provide you with some flexibility for housekeeping, which is kind of new. So I agree, we're going to have to be a lot more flexible about
It's going to be
how we're
absolutely going to
operate.
be wage inflation though as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Would it not make more sense to have, shall we say, profit share or some sort of incentive for employees, and that there, if the business is performing well, they get a bonus or stuff like that? Is that something that can be worked?
Well, in our industry, that's a difficult task. I will say on the food service side, there has been a much more the technology that's come along for even in the hotels, where I can walk in with my phone and I don't need to. It could be almost any level of hotel, 3 to 5 star. I can get my room key now on my phone. I know what room I'm in. I can just walk in, go straight to the elevators, use my phone to go up in the elevator,
fob, yeah.
open my key, open my door to the hotel. If I want to talk to the hotel, I can text them. If I want to order room service, I can do it here. If I want to order some delivery, I can do it here. All of that is happening. It's happening too in the restaurant community. So if you're familiar with a group called Toast, for instance, they just went public. All of the wait staff are holding the terminals. So when someone orders at the table, I can take their order here. The ticket goes straight to the kitchen. I don't have to go to a central terminal anymore. I can change orders. I can add to the orders. And when the guest is ready to leave, I can print the check and give it to them. And there's a code, that they scan.
QR.
They make the payment, right? QR code. And it's like made everything easier.
But does that not? But equally, is that not maybe dumbing down the level of interaction with the client and the staff? Or?
What it does is it gives people the opportunity to determine what the guest is looking for.
Right.
If the guest wants interaction, they
Right.
should be able to pick up on that
Right.
and
Okay.
give them the interaction. If the guest doesn't care
It's a fine
about
line,
interaction,
though, isn't it? It's a fine
it
line.
is. It is. But if it's easily observed.
Right.
And I would tell you that the wait staff, for instance, picks up on it very, very quickly. It doesn't take long to figure it out. And particularly if they're not looking up from their laptops and phones and whatnot to interact with the wait staff, they can read that. But if it's a tourist, you got some Americans coming into Ireland, they want to know, hey, we want to go check out a real Irish pub, what's close by, that interaction starts. So it's good, but it's saving labor and costs like you wouldn't believe. And I think we're going to see more of that technology coming along.
But I think it would be shameful to see that sense of connection with the client and with your customer being depleted to a.
It's still a hospitality business, so I think there's room for all of those things.
Yes.
I agree with you. It's interesting as well because that in the hotel development space has been a real trend in the last couple of years. Budget design hotels, so like Motel One or Citizen M, those guys have kind of figured out that you can build rooms in porta cabins and you can stack them and all of that kind of stuff. And if you think about Citizen M, when I stayed there for the first time, you realize very quickly that you're not working in your room. There's nowhere to sit down. There's nowhere to do anything. They want everyone in the lobby and they want everybody in that space. And so people I think will put up with a lot in terms of like a deficiency of amenities and bells and whistles if the lobby is a beautifully designed space and it's got everything
it's
that you
attractive.
want.
It draws you. If it draws
Absolutely.
you.
And you need so few staff to run them because of that system. And that's a trend that's been going.
Right.
Agreed. Yeah.
It's a mixture. It's a hybrid, really, of it all, isn't it? It's really sort of having that technology available to those that want to use it, but equally having the staff on hand.
Absolutely.
Everybody's going through this. Now we've got major movies that come out and you can either stream them or you can go to the movies and watch them. It depends on your choice as a consumer. You can go to Brown Thomas and get the full experience to buy your Prada shoes, or you can go online and choose them and have them come to your house and never speak to anyone. The entire world is going through the same thing. Restaurants are going through the same thing. I want to have that food, but I don't really feel like putting on my clothes and running out, my restaurant clothes, so to speak, for that experience. But I can go to Uber Eats and they'll bring that food to me. Right. So
so restaurants are now they're going to have to become smarter and be more, in a sense, embrace this and make sure they have a delivery service. Is that true?
Yeah, but I'm with you though. I'm with you though, 100%. I mean, fortunately, I think what people are realizing, like once again with the pandemic. So pre-pandemic, everyone had made this assumption that conferences and meetings would all move online because that was like the logical thing, right? We have the technology, we don't need to see each other face to face. And I think within 3 months of the pandemic, everyone realized that it's terrible. That everybody hates Zoom. It doesn't work. It's not the same thing at all. It's really disconnecting. Yes. And I think also, as good as people like Just Eat or Deliveroo, any of that kind of stuff, it's just the food's not as good. No. It's not nearly as good.
It's not the experience.
No.
No. Hospitality, as we said, is about
I think hospitality.
Engagement.
I think hospitality, if it made no difference in the quality of the food, I think hospitality would be in big trouble. But there is a massive difference in the quality of food. If you've ordered on Deliveroo food from like a Michelin Star restaurant, a good restaurant, it's not, it ain't the Michelin Star experience. Of course, sure. If you want to order a curry or whatever, then it's probably okay. Yeah. But that experience, and also I don't want to live in a world or work in an industry where you can go into a hotel or a property and not connect with a human being. I mean, that, as John said, that option is going. It is that option is going to be made available. But I think it's a bit like segmentation. There will be a section of the market who really enjoy that, who really want that. But there'll be, I believe, a much larger section of the market who are coming to the hotel for the experience, which is delivered by the people working there.
And it's going to be very, very diverse in terms of consumers, because on one trip, a businessman, he may be very busy and stressed out and may want no interaction with anybody, but the next time he comes with his girlfriend or his wife or in their family, they're going to want a lot more interaction, and they're going to look for different experiences.
So the market in itself will be it'll self-regulate in that sense.
We found, if you look at study after study, you find that the same consumers who order, do you still have Apache Pizza here?
I think so.
Okay. The same people who order Apache Pizza or Domino's or any of those guys, or also go to the McDonald's, are the same people who later on are over at the finest restaurants. It's just sometimes, let's just go out and get Mickey D's. Yeah. And then 3 days later, they're like, I love that gorgeous steakhouse. Let's go get a nice steak tonight. And they'll get dressed and go out. And they're going to spend 2-3 hours dining, right? Yeah. But it's the same consumers.
I think what you're talking about here is identifying the opportunities and making sure you can maximise that
Absolutely.
opportunity. That's what it's all about, isn't it?
It is.
And it's also utilising technology without dumbing down the service.
We're learning, we're getting smarter and smarter and smarter. When 0809 happened, there were a lot of distressed assets. And I mean, really a lot. And everybody was scrambling to figure out how we're going to fix this. And much of that was driven by the banks and the lenders, right? Who were clamping down on everybody out of fear. If you look this time, the banks and the lenders they learned. And they said, okay, we're going to have to be super flexible. We're going to end up with a lot of bad debt. And they don't want their balance sheet to look bad.
They haven't been as reckless as they had been in 08, let's be honest.
Exactly.
Yeah, disappointing, really.
Your point there.
Yeah. Fair to you.
Spending like drunk sailors on the
Yeah,
shore.
yeah.
You know, they've been quite restrained.
But I would
But
tell you,
in a sense that leaves the economy in a better place. And if you look at the Irish economy, we're in a far better place. Considering everything that's going on, we're still posting good exchequer returns. The economy is quite strong.
Well, in a way, you could look at, and I never thought that the words would come out of my mouth, but in terms of preparation for the pandemic, the financial crisis did us all a favour, right? Because it got everybody in good shape, or better shape. If you can imagine the financial crisis hadn't happened the way it had happened, and then we gone into the pandemic, I mean, it would be an absolute horror show. I mean, it's bad, but, you know, the banks are in much better shape, governments are in much better shape.
It'd make the depression look like a party.
well, and I think too, this COVID has made us a little bit.
A number 10 party.
Number 10 party.
Sorry, business meeting.
Yeah.
I think too that the COVID has helped us become almost more bulletproof. I think people now have systems in place. They have habits that they've established. And if, 10 years from now we end up in, some other.
But I also think it's that people appreciate and really evaluate what's good for them and what's needed for them, and they do realise now that they need to have time out, they need for that break, they need that downtime, they need the vacation, and therefore it puts hospitality, as you said, on that trajectory for
The other thing too is that everybody wants to again have hybrid opportunities, meaning I can now work with my briefcase and my mobile, and I can take the family and I can spend 2 weeks at a destination, and I can still get my work done. So
My wife hates that.
Yeah. Still get my work done.
Yes.
But I'm just saying, I think that we're seeing more leisure, that business leisure thing, which I hate the word because it's being so overused right now, but it's true. It's absolute truth. My own wife is like, depending on where I'm going, she says, "Oh, I want to go with you." And now I can say, okay, let's go. And I can have an extended week if I want. Still be working, but we can be at a destination. And I think that's really going to help the hospitality industry. I really do.
As you said, it's probably one of those assets that will really gain. As at the moment people mightn't see that, but in 2 years' time, when we look back on this, we'll be realising that this really has become it's a real buoyant time for the hospitality sector.
Well, there was that thing, wasn't it? I think about 15 years ago when you look at the Economist graphs, and for the first time ever, people were spending more money on experiences than they were spending on goods and services for the family. And that happened. That happened. The crossover happened about 15 years ago, and it's just increased since then. And so, to me, I think it's all about future-proofing and looking which of these industries has a future. What do people want to do? Do people want to travel? Do they want to go places? Do they want to stay places? Absolutely, and that just increases. So that gives the whole industry a future in the way that I think a lot of other industries don't have, because people throw around the idea of pent-up demand in a way, but I for the travel and tourism, it's really true. It's really, really true. All of those trips. And a lot of what happened, and certainly anecdotally with a lot of friends, all of the trips that they booked in the last 2 years, they've not been cancelled, they've just been rescheduled, and pushed forward and pushed forward. There are a lot of trips and holidays that have already been paid for, that are going to be taken.
They're going to happen.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Same with conferences.
Right. Yeah.
And as you said, like, I mean, the idea of the Zoom, right, it has helped in the current pandemic to assist, but in reality, people want that sense of engagement.
Listen, it was
This
better.
is why I'm here.
Yeah.
We've had 2 years of Zoom meetings, and as chairman, I want to press flesh.
Yes.
And I want to make eye contact, and
Yeah.
I want to get to know our teams.
Zoom is better than nothing, but only just.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a tagline. Maybe I'll give them to that. They can
Yeah,
have that
yeah.
for free.
Yeah.
They can,
Yeah.
no,
Get a
he's
new
already got
line.
it.
Right.
He's already got it. Yeah. He's selling it to
This
to somebody right now.
This here now is what I call it to him.
Absolutely.
Trademarked.
Yeah, trademark. Better than nothing, but only just.
Yeah. So like, from both your perspectives, you would be quite bullish about tourism and about hospitality in the future.
Absolutely, I would. We keep seeing every time there's been a break in these COVID rules, and all of a sudden the market opens up, the numbers of people just skyrocket. The demand skyrockets. If we look at destinations like Orlando, Florida, just speaking about the U.S., or we look at Hawaii, we look at places like that, as soon as the market opened, the numbers were off the charts of returning consumers, and the spend per consumer was off the charts, because there's not just the pent-up demand, but they haven't been able to spend their money. They've got a load of cash.
So it's a bit like a gold rush, isn't it?
It really is.
Yeah.
I mean,
know.
I was saying earlier, if you look at the Hawaii market when it opened up for a period in between the COVID strain, domestically, meaning mainland tourism from the U.S. to Hawaii, Asia was still closed down, which is about 35% of the market traditionally.
Right.
None of that was coming, but they still outperformed for about 2.5 months. They outperformed 2019 numbers in air passengers and hotel occupancy and ADR. And I think that's just a litmus test of what we can expect. It's just a small indicator of what we can expect from a performance standpoint. I know people, I've told people I'm going to London, I'm going to Ireland, they're like, oh my gosh, are you going to be, is that a problem? I mean, is it going to be complicated? Is it going to be, what are you expecting? I'm like, well, I'm hoping that I can get through. Everything will be great.
Yeah.
But I'm going to tell you, when I get back, they're all going to be going, oh, we're ready to go to Europe. We are so ready to go to Europe.
You know what? It has been very pleasantly, even now. So I did a trip last September to Berlin, which was pretty complicated in terms of tests in advance, testing, blah, 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 blah. And even now, the difference coming in, it was so easy, wasn't it?
This was
so
a
easy.
pleasure
Yeah.
to come here from London.
Really no different to a normal. Masks the only difference, really.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think it is waning and all that sort of silliness.
Well, we're running out of Greek names, aren't we?
Yeah.
Really, so we're
Well,
probably gonna have to-
So there's a gentleman with CNN. His name is Fareed Zakaria.
Right.
Is his name. And you should Google his last Sunday's broadcast, just this last Sunday, because he's an amazing, I would say, journalist, but he's also an analyst, and he gets down to the facts. But if you look at his show, it's called GPS because it's global. It speaks about the globe.
Zachariah.
Fareed Zakaria, amazing guy, and he talks about that we are, whether we realize it or not, beginning the post-pandemic life right now, because the only reasons that we're having any issues at all are the unvaccinated. This is what's driving things currently. Yes, children, we're taking care of them, and yes, some people with pre-existing conditions, we want to take care of them for sure. But ultimately, we're reaching a point where we're no longer going to allow the unvaccinated to punish or dictate the rest of the world. And as that continues to move forward and we start getting more jabs, okay, maybe we need another one next year, but it becomes a flu and that kind of treatment, we'll adjust it. Here you go for your annual COVID shot or what it may be.
It's endemic. It's going to be flu-like.
We're entering that post-pandemic, and we're starting to see it.
Yes.
As the UK has dropped their PCR testing, you have as well here in Ireland. In the US, we're very relaxed now compared to what we were, although I'm still having to get a PCR test to go home.
So you are?
I believe. We'll see. But we're seeing that shift. And I think that that's going to be the case for this year. I'm expecting that tourism this year is going to be good. I'm going to predict.
You're going to predict that.
Well, last
Worldwide.
summer was incredible.
It was
You
off the
couldn't
charts.
get, you couldn't get in May, June, July, August. You couldn't get a campsite, a cottage, an apartment. The staycation business was
Yeah,
off the
I
charts.
would anticipate there's about 18 months to 24 months of real boom times, but then it will level out. It will get back to the norm, but it still will be a very attractive.
God, I hope so.
investment.
It's going to be exhausting otherwise.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying to you. But I think
Yeah.
I think there will be that sort of level of, and because of pent up demand and the backlog.
Of course,
Yeah.
of course. But as you know better than anybody, the business is traditionally incredibly cyclical anyway,
yes.
right? And so that boom time will probably precipitate and incentivize a lot of building. There'll be a lot of new supply, and then we'll be back in that, oh dear, we've built too many rooms, and then the usual.
I
stuff.
predict too, over the 18 to 24 months, there will be no seasonality.
Yeah,
Just
I think
straight.
that. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's. Yeah,
That's
I
a
think
good shout.
that's how it's going to work out. There'll be consistency. It won't be the shoulder time or lean time.
No, it's
There'll
going to be. There's
2
not going to
years
be
of-
seasonality because people just want to go.
Yeah.
And I well know what happened in the Caribbean and the U.S. when things started to open up again for a period. Airfares were outrageous. Hotel fees were outrageous, and people were happy to pay them.
Anywhere apart from my front room.
Exactly. So I think that's becoming the.
How
the
much
norm.
money do I have to give you to
Yeah,
get out of my
yeah,
house?
I hope you enjoyed our conversation with James and John from Horwath HTL. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, where you can find our episodes on Spotify or at hotelandrestauranttimes.ie/podcasts. I hope you'll join us next month. Thank you.